Bobby, first of all, congratulations. New role, obviously you just mentioned the summer was very busy. Overall, how are you feeling personally in this moment?
I'm really excited. I always say that you have to take the summer to recharge. You got to climb the mountain again, and I always, the end of the season is tough to think about, okay, what's fall going to look like? I always say it's like a school year. It's like first day of school. So today we have the first day of school. Everyone's excited. Hope is in the air.
When it was you and Masai, there was always a shared vision, and I think it obviously worked well for the majority of the time. But now that it's just you, do you share the same vision, or are you looking at this a little differently?
I think our evaluation of players has always been very similar, right? We're always valuing the same things, right? So you want to, think back to the championship winning team and some of the players we brought in. So really hardworking kids, really high character. I think we've always valued sort of having that chip on your shoulder. And I think that sort of, whether it was the We the North campaign or the run with the team, culminating the title, I think that was something that we sort of felt was sort of a through line that felt that. And so continuing that, finding players was sort of that ilk.
The way you operate compared to the way Masai operated, are there any differences?
Yeah, I think those are very obvious ones. I always say Masai's an incredible motivator, incredible, loves to give those speeches, and I think that's sort of you'd run through a wall for. I'm probably going to come off a bit, more low key and sort of to myself, but I think the competition, the desire to win is always there.
So you're not going to get on a stage and call out a team and say a profane word?
Probably not.
Come on.
You know what though? You never know. You never know how you'll feel in the moment. So we'll see.
I'm just saying, if you want to endear yourself,
I know.
That might be something there. In your mind, once you won the championship, what equates to winning basketball? What is the most important part?
I think you think of those teams and even some of the teams after was just the level of competitiveness. I think those teams from each player down competed. I think it started with Kyle. He sort of sets the tone that, when he was running around like a madman on defense and, carrying the team, I think that's what sort of embodied a lot of that. But I think this team is learning. They're learning how to compete every single night. I think people saw towards the end of last season, we played really competitive. We got after on the defensive end. But I think it's a night after night thing. It can't be, I want to play on Thursday and then I want to play on Friday because it's back-to-back. And so the learning how to compete every night, I think is what's going to, develop this team.
So you just need an all-star that's going to take charges at the all-star game. Got it. Let's talk about short-term needs for this team. Obviously, you've built it. There's high expectations. Is there anything imminent right now that you need to change, or are you happy with what's going forward into this season?
No, we're good. I think getting Sandro in the offseason was good for us on the bench for a big, drafting Colin back in June at number 9. I think, defensively he can compete right away, so we'll see, how we use him. I think people and the fans, it'll be fun to see this starting group. I think there's a lot of talent. We've been waiting how many months now to see this group play. So for us, obviously behind the scenes, they've been here in September. They've been playing as a starting 5, and so I think, come Monday in Vancouver, it'll be fun for everyone to see.
Speaking of that nucleus, it is the 11th highest payroll in the NBA. Does that put extra pressure, extra expectation on the fact that this team needs to make the postseason to be successful?
No, I think those guys put expectations on themselves, right? Internally, we hold ourselves to a high standard. I will say the salary cap or your team salary is not calculated to the end of the year, so it is in flux, and I think we'll decide appropriately as the season goes on, sort of how much this team needs, or if we need to make any moves.
When we were watching this team in Summer League, it kind of seemed like it was a defense-first mentality once again, kind of that hard-nosed team that we saw that won the championship as well. Would you classify this team like that?
That's it. The emphasis from Darko, the emphasis from this group of players. I think Brandon Ingram coming into the situation and sort of observing it from the outside at the end of the season, he said, you've really created a defensive identity. And so I think, one, that helps streamline the messaging for Darko, but I think also players that come in. So Sandro comes in, you guys are going to play your butts off on the defensive end first, and that's how you're going to earn playing time. And I think that carries over throughout the whole team. And yeah, if you think of, Oklahoma City that won last year, when we won in 19, it was clearly defense was a priority. That's how you get on the court. That's how you're going to earn your playing time. And that'll be the standard from this team.
Let's talk more about Brandon Ingram, because obviously Raptor fans have yet to see him. I mean, we've seen him play in the NBA, but obviously injury has been a concern. It's his 3rd chapter now with a 3rd different team. When you acquired him, let's go back to that. Why did you make that move? Was it the fact that you could buy low, or did you see a really good fit with this team?
I think you hit on both of them. I think we felt like the price for him in the market. We gave up one first-round pick, which I think, for a player of his caliber, a former All-Star, that was good. And I think for this team, I think on the offensive end, he creates shots for himself. He creates easy shots for himself. I think an underrated part of his game is he creates for others. Scottie always tells me, I like to pass, Brandon likes to score. So I think it's a good pairing. But I think the fans will enjoy watching him play. He's a quiet kid off the court, so I think his game will do a lot of the speaking this year.
I think that's where it fits well too, because with Zion he was a score first guy, whereas Scottie's a pass first. So I think the combination might be really nice, and I know fans are truly excited to see that. Let's talk more about Scottie. His extension kicks in this season. What do you need to see from him to take it to the next level?
Darko and I met with him last week. We had breakfast. I think sometimes there's too much emphasis put on his scoring. I think his playmaking, his baseline, I told him, is his energy, his defense, his rebounding, and his leadership. Right, the scoring part, he can score very easily because his physical attributes. But I think for him he's been here the longest. He's the longest tenure Raptor now. The contract, obviously, there'll be expectations. He needs to block out that noise. Obviously, that comes with the territory of being a max player. But no, I think defense, he really turned up his defensive intensity last year, so versatility on defense, playmaking, and then keeping that group together. He's high basketball IQ, he's an emotional player, people follow him, and so how is he keeping the starters together, how is he keeping the locker room together, and how is he being that leader for us?
Colin Murray-Boyles, you selected him 9th overall in the draft. What can we expect from him?
We're excited. I think he's the most disruptive defensive player in the draft. For everyone who loves steals, blocks, he'll swipe with the ball at any chance he gets. So I think that's what really stood out to us. He's a sophomore coming out of South Carolina, so we got to watch him his freshman year, and sort of this development of him. He's big and strong. So I think he kind of reminds me of like an old Raptor pick, which is, a lot of defensive versatility, really long, big hands, developing offensively. He's really good around the rim. We'll try and develop his three ball, but people will like his defense.
When we talk about the young players, especially the ones coming off the bench, what's your hope for them this season?
They have to continue to grow. We probably have too many of them, so excited to see the competition. I think we think about Jacoby and Jamal and Grady and Ochai and there's so many of them. Even a Jamison Battle who showed signs last season that he belongs. So the competition, I think we've seen it before, was the bench mob back in 16 or 17, where they push each other. Sort of they push the starters, the third group is pushing the second group, and I think having that dynamic for us has been positive historically, and we're looking forward to seeing it.
I think if we watched the Raptors team last season, it was the transition. I mean, when it came to moving the ball, they did that quite well. Would you like a little more versatility in this offense, though?
I think the ball movement is, one of the hallmarks for Darko. He talks about it, the 0.5 offense. And I think that's where Brandon comes in, right? And sometimes you can move the ball, endlessly, but how do you end up with a good shot, or how do you end up with a efficient shot, or how do you end up at the rim? And I think that's where Brandon will come in. And so, is the ball moving early? Sure. Do we get into a spot where we need to throw it to a Brandon? Great. And now we have a lot of players who can play off of him. So quickly, shooting the ball really well. RJ's improving his shooting, and Jakob just cleans up the mess on both ends.
Unsung hero. When we're talking about the half-court offense too, that was one area that the team did struggle in a little bit. Do you hope that BI, a guy that can obviously shoot the ball really well, helps in that area?
I think so. I think that's his bread and butter. He's have to find the right balance of getting his points, but keeping everybody else involved. But that's nothing specific to him or new in the NBA. I think whenever you see, creators and scorers of his ilk, that's the balance they have to find. And so I think playing together in September, playing together in training camp and preseason, hopefully, sort of the pecking order will fall in that way.
Manuel, quickly, a 5-year, $175 million contract. We know how well he can shoot that three ball, but how important is it for him to create that space in the Raptors offense?
I think, too. I think, one, he has to stay healthy. I think last year was a bit, in our view, sort of freakish things. First game of the year, gets undercut, just sort of has some odd injuries here and there. The shooting is king. I think anyone who watches the NBA, whether it was Steph or Tyrese last year in the playoffs, that ability to shoot volume threes at a high percentage off the bounce in transition, that's what he has. Yes, the part of distributing it, getting others involved early, but his bread and butter is going to be shooting the three.
Finally, can you describe what Raptors basketball looks like in 2025, 2026?
On the offensive end, it's going to be really unselfish, play for each other. Hopefully it finds the right guys at the end of the clock. And the defensive end is, for those who watch Summer League, we're picking up 94 feet. Jamal Shedd's going to hound every single backup point guard in the league. Jacoby having a wave of young players that can come in and defend, and hopefully some wins to follow.
Thank you very much. We look forward to the Bobby Webster era of Raptors basketball.
Thanks, Kate.